Under the dim blue haze of the shallow reef, the octopus waits, an organism so alien in design that it feels as if evolution briefly experimented with science fiction. The water is still except for the pulse of its mantle, drawing in and releasing water in a slow rhythm that mirrors the quiet heartbeat of the sea itself. To the casual eye, it appears calm, almost meditative, a lump of coral-like flesh mottled in sand hues and soft beige. But beneath that skin lies a nervous system unlike anything else on Earth, a network of intelligence that does not live only in its head, but extends throughout its body like a living, thinking web. An octopus's brain is not a single throne of command. It is a parliament of neurons, distributed, local, and semi-autonomous. Nearly two-thirds of its 500 million neurons reside in its arms, not its central brain. Each arm is capable of making its own decisions, sampling textures, shapes, and even flavors through microscopic receptors that taste by touch. When one arm stretches over a rock and feels the faint roughness of a crab shell beneath a layer of algae, it does not wait for instructions. It begins to act, curling inward in careful increments, testing resistance, confirming prey. Only when the movement of multiple arms becomes complex, when coordination, stealth, or timing is required, does the central brain intervene. We see this distributed intelligence unfold like a slow-motion negotiation. A crab, camouflaged against a coral head, is picking at detritus when the first arm of the octopus begins its silent approach, stretching like an inquisitive vine. Then another arm from the opposite side joins in. The two limbs appear to argue, retracting and extending, adjusting their grip as though sensing each other's intent. In reality, they are sharing reflexive feedback through the octopus's peripheral neural circuits, an intricate system where each arm can learn from the movements of its neighbors. Electrical signals pass not only through the brain but across the nerve cords linking each limb, allowing the creature to function like a distributed swarm under one skin. This is where the octopus's intelligence becomes something far more than instinct. When researchers at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem tested isolated octopus arms, the limbs could still perform coordinated grasping movements, curling around objects and adjusting their grip strength in response to texture and temperature. They were, in essence, still thinking in miniature. And when the entire organism acts in concert, when all 8 arms engage, the result is a display of collective cognition that rivals the problem-solving power of some vertebrate animals. The octopus is a brain that wears its neurons on the outside. As the crab begins to sense vibrations in the water, it freezes. The reef falls silent except for the faint hiss of bubbles escaping coral crevices. Then, with astonishing speed, the octopus unfurls its body in what biologists call a parachute pounce. The webbed membrane that connects its arms spreads into a living canopy, sealing off the crab's escape routes. Every arm curls inward like a drawstring bag, funneling prey toward the center of this biological trap. Inside the darkness, the crab flails and clacks its claws, but the octopus's suckers already taste the calcium of its shell, identifying weak points along the joints. Within moments, venom-laced saliva seeps in, paralyzing the crustacean before it can even comprehend its end. What follows is a scene of eerie calm. The octopus reclines, its color returning to a mottled brown, skin papillae flattening as it begins to consume its meal. But even as it eats, its arms are not idle. One arm continues to probe the surrounding reef, checking for movement or intruders. Another tests the texture of a nearby shell, perhaps considering whether it could serve as future camouflage. This multitasking reveals a principle that challenges our own concept of centralized control. The octopus's body is a collection of semi-independent processes, each equipped with local memory, sensory feedback, and motor coordination. It does not think in linear sequences like humans do, it computes in parallel. Imagine this not as a single consciousness issuing commands, but as a network, an aquatic internet of flesh and neurons. Each arm communicates with others through neural pathways that bypass the central brain entirely. This arm-to-arm reflex sharing allows for astonishing adaptability. When one arm encounters a new texture or resistance pattern, the information spreads through the network, updating the behavior of others almost instantly. The result is a fluid intelligence that reacts faster than centralized thought ever could. Evolution has found a way to outsource decision-making, to turn the body itself into a thinking machine. But the octopus's genius does not end at neural architecture. Its skin is a sensory surface in its own right, an organic display panel and photoreceptive field fused into one. Scattered across its epidermis are specialized proteins known as opsins, the same light-sensitive molecules found in eyes. This means the octopus may be able to sense light through its skin, detecting brightness and shadow even when its eyes are hidden. Researchers from the University of California, Santa Barbara, have demonstrated that when octopus skin samples are exposed to light, the chromatophores, the pigment sacs responsible for color change, respond independently, expanding and contracting as though they see. This discovery fuels one of the most fascinating speculations in marine biology, that the octopus's body might possess a primitive form of distributed vision, a network of light-sensing cells that inform its camouflage reflexes without involving the brain. When an octopus changes color to match a coral head or mimic the shifting sunlight of the seafloor, it may not be deciding in the way we understand. Its skin is perceiving, processing, and acting in microseconds, guided by local photoreception. The octopus is not merely controlling its body, it is living through it. To grasp the evolutionary logic behind this, one must consider the octopus's world, a realm without permanence, where every surface shifts with light and current, and danger can emerge from any direction. In this environment, a centralized brain would be too slow, too vulnerable to damage. Distributed control means resilience. If one arm is injured or detached, the others continue functioning seamlessly. The octopus can regrow lost limbs within weeks, complete with the same neural complexity as the original. Even the regrowth process reflects distributed intelligence. The stump's nerves reorganize autonomously, guided by molecular cues rather than conscious control. In the reef ecosystem, such adaptability makes the octopus an unparalleled opportunist. It can change its shape to squeeze through crevices no larger than a seashell, eject ink to confuse predators, and manipulate objects with astonishing dexterity. Observers have watched octopuses unscrew jars, assemble shelters from discarded coconut shells, and even collect shiny trinkets like glass shards or bottle caps. These behaviors reveal problem-solving that borders on creativity, an emergent property of its distributed mind. Yet perhaps the most haunting aspect of octopus intelligence is its transient nature. Despite this sophistication, the animal's lifespan is brutally short. Most species live less than 2 years, burning through their brilliance in a brief burst of evolution's artistry. After mating, the female guards her eggs with obsessive devotion, refusing food as she fans them with oxygen-rich currents until her body withers. When the young hatch, she dies, leaving behind a new generation programmed to rediscover through experience the knowledge she never passes on. The collective genius of the species is not stored in tradition or culture, but in the adaptable design of their nervous systems. Every octopus is a self-taught prodigy. Underwater footage captures the creature returning to its den after a hunt. The arms coil in synchronized spirals, each sucker releasing microbubbles as it passes along the coral floor. A shift in light passes over its skin, and in an instant, its body ripples from ochre to pale sand, then to the flickering pattern of filtered sunlight. The camouflage seems alive, an external thought broadcast across the body. For the octopus, color is not decoration but language. It signals emotion, intention, and environmental awareness. When startled, its skin flushes white. When curious, subtle waves of brown and gold shimmer across its mantle. And when preparing for ambush, every cell aligns in calculated deception, blending the animal into the living mosaic of the reef. To study an octopus is to question what intelligence really is. Must a mind be centralized? Must it possess a self? The octopus suggests otherwise. Its consciousness, if it can be called that, emerges from cooperation between parts, from information flowing through decentralized systems. Its arms are like independent agents negotiating a shared existence, a biological democracy functioning with seamless precision. In the end, the octopus is not merely a creature of instinct, but a living model of distributed computation, an evolutionary experiment that challenges our definition of awareness. Beneath its alien form lies a profound lesson about nature's versatility. Intelligence does not belong solely to the brain. It can live in limbs, in skin, in the rhythmic pulse of tissue that senses, decides, and acts in one continuous motion. As it vanishes into the reef, its form dissolving into a mirage of coral and shadow, the illusion becomes complete. The octopus is nowhere, yet everywhere within its world, a ghost of motion and thought intertwined. Its mind is not a place but a network, a living tide of neurons that ripple like light across the sea floor. Beneath the shallow waves of a sunlit lagoon, a shape drifts in perfect silence, a cuttlefish, hovering effortlessly in the still blue like an unfinished thought. The creature appears unremarkable at first glance, a smooth, pale mantle no larger than a human hand, yet its body holds one of the most advanced biological systems on the planet. Within seconds, that blank surface erupts into color, form, and motion, mottled stripes, pulsating spots, undulating waves of light. What was invisible becomes vivid, then invisible again, all faster than the human eye can fully register. This is not decoration. It is computation written in flesh. A cuttlefish does not think about camouflage in the way a human might imagine. It does not ponder, calculate, or consciously match its background. Instead, its skin acts as a living algorithm, a biological computer capable of rendering adaptive patterns in less than a heartbeat. Layered within its dermis are three specialized structures: chromatophores, iridophores, and leucophores. Each performs a different function, yet together they create the illusion of near-perfect invisibility. The outermost layer, the chromatophores, are tiny pigment sacs controlled by radial muscles. When expanded, they display vibrant shades of yellow, red, and brown. Below them, the iridophores reflect light using nanoscale plates, creating iridescent blues and greens through structural interference. Beneath that lies the layer of leucophores, which scatter ambient light, forming a reflective white base that allows the skin to simulate almost any brightness or tone. The result is a system not unlike a three-layer digital screen, one that can modulate hue, contrast, and reflectivity simultaneously. Every square millimeter of cuttlefish skin is an independent pixel, capable of responding to its surroundings through direct neural control. What makes this system extraordinary is speed. In the time it takes a predator's shadow to fall across the seabed, the cuttlefish's skin has already recalculated its entire visual strategy. A flicker of pattern ripples across its mantle, and suddenly the animal is no longer a living organism, but a patch of coral, a lump of sand, or the faint shimmer of sunlight over rock. This transformation is not random, but rule-based. Through decades of behavioral studies, scientists have discovered that cuttlefish follow mathematical principles when selecting camouflage patterns. Principles based on contrast edges, texture gradients, and spatial frequency rather than pure color. In an experimental tank, a cuttlefish is placed against a black and white checkerboard. Within seconds, its skin forms a disruptive pattern that mirrors the visual geometry of its background. But when the same checkerboard is replaced with a random array of colors, pink, green, orange, the animal hesitates, then chooses a pattern that ignores the colors entirely, focusing instead on light and dark contrasts. This reveals a key truth about how the cuttlefish sees the world. Despite possessing some of the most complex camouflage on Earth, it is colorblind. It perceives patterns and brightness, not hues. What it matches are the statistics of edges, not pigments. This paradox, colorblind artists painting with light, has fascinated biologists for decades. The secret lies in the cuttlefish's W-shaped pupils, which enable it to detect polarization and subtle gradients of brightness invisible to human vision. By rotating its eyes, it can analyze the direction of polarized light reflected off objects, inferring color boundaries through brightness differentials. In essence, the cuttlefish reconstructs a world of color from light physics rather than direct pigment recognition. It reads the structure of light itself. Such precision extends beyond mere camouflage. Cuttlefish use polarization not only to see, but to communicate. To most fish, the cuttlefish's skin appears dull and flat. But through a polarization-sensitive lens, a hidden world emerges, shimmering lines, changing angles, and pulsating signals flashing across the mantle. These are polarization messages, coded communication visible only to others of their kind. Through this system, cuttlefish can send warnings, mating invitations, or territorial displays while remaining visually cryptic to predators. It is the underwater equivalent of a secret language, a broadcast whispered in light. In the coral gardens of Indonesia, divers have observed two cuttlefish hovering face to face, their patterns in constant flux. The outer skin displays subtle shifting bands, invisible to human eyes under normal light. But when recorded through polarized filters, the scene transforms into a light show of astonishing complexity, waves of alternating brightness sweeping across each body in rhythm. Researchers believe this may represent a visual dialogue where one cuttlefish's signal modifies the others in real time, an exchange of information as precise and deliberate as speech. The evolutionary significance of this communication is profound. In a world where visibility means vulnerability, the ability to transmit private messages without alerting predators provides a critical survival advantage. It also hints at higher cognitive processing. Unlike reflexive color changes triggered by environmental cues, polarization signaling requires awareness of another individual's response. It suggests that the cuttlefish is not just reacting to its surroundings, it is predicting and adapting in a social context. Behind the cuttlefish's eye, a brain no larger than a walnut manages this staggering complexity. Within that compact organ lies a visual processing region that rivals that of some birds and mammals. It is divided into lobes specialized for pattern analysis, spatial memory, and motor coordination. The neural density is remarkable, tens of millions of neurons dedicated solely to controlling skin texture, shape, and color. Through these networks, the cuttlefish can fine-tune individual chromatophores, producing intricate effects like waves of motion or three-dimensional mimicry. To understand just how sophisticated this system is, consider the passing cloud display, a hypnotic pattern where a dark wave travels across the body, imitating the shadow of a cloud drifting overhead. This behavior is often used to startle prey or confuse observers, and it relies on precise timing of chromatophore contraction across thousands of cells. The effect is both deceptive and mesmerizing, as though the cuttlefish were projecting moving images across its skin. When hunting shrimp or small fish, it may use this display as a lure, drawing attention away from its tentacles just long enough to strike. The physics behind this ability borders on artistry. Each chromatophore is a sphere of pigment surrounded by radial muscles that expand or contract it like an aperture. The speed at which they respond, measured in milliseconds, allows the animal to create dynamic optical illusions. In essence, the cuttlefish can animate itself, producing living patterns that simulate not only appearance but movement. It can resemble a ripple of sand, a drifting weed, or the flicker of sunlight through water. Its camouflage is not static, it breathes with its environment. The ecological implications are equally impressive. By adapting to visual textures rather than colors, cuttlefish achieve a form of universal camouflage, effective in a wide range of habitats, from bright coral shallows to dim, silty seabeds. In turbid waters, where color fades but contrast remains, this strategy offers unparalleled flexibility. And in the deep twilight zones, where only polarized light persists, their communication system becomes a critical link between individuals navigating near total darkness. One of the most fascinating discoveries about cuttlefish cognition emerged from controlled experiments testing their ability to recognize visual rules. In a study designed to assess abstract reasoning, researchers exposed cuttlefish to patterns differing only in spatial frequency, the number of light-dark transitions per unit area. Over repeated trials, the animals learned to associate certain patterns with food rewards, generalizing their choice even to new designs that shared similar edge statistics. This revealed a kind of rule-based visual reasoning, a capacity to extract general principles rather than memorize specific patterns. For a mollusk, this is extraordinary. It suggests an ability to interpret visual data in ways that hint at symbolic thought. But perhaps the most humbling aspect of the cuttlefish's biology is how it embodies the intersection between neural computation and physical form. Its body does not merely display patterns, it thinks them. Every change of color is a decision executed across millions of muscle fibers, each responding to neural pulses measured in microseconds. It is as though evolution embedded a high-speed graphics processor within soft tissue. And while human technology struggles to replicate this natural efficiency, the cuttlefish performs it effortlessly, without heat, noise, or external energy sources beyond food and oxygen. When viewed through a scientific lens, the cuttlefish stands as a masterpiece of distributed control, a living bridge between behavior and biophysics. Its skin's architecture anticipates ideas that modern engineers strive to emulate: adaptive camouflage, responsive surfaces, and programmable materials. Military researchers studying cephalopods have already attempted to mimic these principles in synthetic fabrics that change color or texture on command, yet even the most advanced prototypes lag far behind the precision of nature's design. As the cuttlefish glides once more over the seafloor, its body dissolves into the background, leaving only a pair of eyes watching from nowhere.
In this quiet disappearance lies the essence of its power. The cuttlefish does not conquer its world through strength or speed.
It survives by mastering perception itself, seeing without color, signaling without words, and vanishing without trace. It reminds us that intelligence need not roar or radiate. Sometimes it whispers through polarization, encoded in light angles and invisible wavelengths. In every flicker of its skin there is computation. In every shift of hue there is thought. The ocean may never reveal all the rules by which the cuttlefish hides, but in its silent performances, it shows something even deeper: that the line between seeing and being seen, between body and mind, can blur until the two become one seamless living equation of survival.
In the sun-slashed shallows of a coral flat, where every ripple fractures the light into liquid fire, a mantis shrimp prowls, a creature so small it could fit in a child's palm, yet so sophisticated that even the finest human instruments struggle to match its vision and speed. Its body glows with metallic hues of turquoise, red, and emerald, as though it had been sculpted from shards of tropical rainbows. But beneath this iridescent beauty lies a machine built for extremes, a predator armed with one of the fastest strikes in the natural world and eyes that perceive a reality almost unrecognizable to our own. The world as seen by a mantis shrimp is a sensory cathedral. Each eye is not a single camera but three in one, a trinocular system capable of gauging depth independently. Where humans require both eyes to triangulate distance, each mantis shrimp eye accomplishes that feat alone, splitting its field of view into three overlapping zones. This gives it an extraordinary capacity to measure range and motion with precision that defies intuition. But that is only the beginning. Within the complex architecture of its compound eyes, arranged like rolling marbles on stalks, are more than a dozen types of photoreceptor cells, specialized detectors for wavelengths spanning far beyond human capability. Some species can see ultraviolet light, others detect circular and linear polarization, and all process color in ways that bypass the comparative methods used by virtually every other visual organism. To the mantis shrimp, polarization is not a subtle effect, it is a hidden dimension. While humans perceive the brightness and hue of reflected light, polarization reveals the direction and phase of the wave itself, transforming ordinary reflections into luminous patterns invisible to most predators and prey. Mantis shrimp eyes are equipped with microscopic filters, precisely arranged layers of photoreceptive cells that decode this information instantly. This means that even when two surfaces appear identical to human eyes, the mantis shrimp sees one as vertically polarized, the other horizontally, a contrast that can define the boundary between camouflaged prey and open space. In this underwater world, color and polarization weave together into a coded language. During courtship, mantis shrimp use this private visual channel to communicate without alerting predators. Males flash polarization patterns across their carapace, subtle shifts in reflected light that signal readiness, dominance, or submission. Females respond in kind, their appendages glinting in spectral codes, invisible to fish or octopuses nearby.
Researchers have filmed these interactions under polarizing filters, revealing scenes that look eerily like light-based conversations, shimmering dots and bands that oscillate in rhythm, each pulse carrying a behavioral message. For the mantis shrimp, vision is not just a sensory input, it is a navigational and social tool. Their polarized markings serve as territorial signatures, guiding individuals through labyrinthine burrows and helping them recognize rivals or mates in a world where many species look superficially similar. This private light language ensures that their communications remain hidden from eavesdroppers. In an ecosystem where competition is constant and violence is frequent, secrecy can mean survival. The visual sophistication of the mantis shrimp raises a paradox. How does an animal with such a powerful visual system interpret so much information without being overwhelmed? The answer lies in how it processes color. Unlike humans, who compare signals between 3 types of cone cells, red, green, and blue, to interpret hues, the mantis shrimp uses a shortcut. Each of its photoreceptor types responds to a specific narrow band of wavelength, acting almost like a barcode reader. Rather than calculating the differences between inputs, it identifies color through direct recognition. Each wavelength triggers a distinct receptor channel, allowing for lightning-fast color classification. This spectral shortcut sacrifices subtlety for speed, giving the mantis shrimp immediate information without the need for comparison. This adaptation has profound implications for its behavior. In the chaos of a coral battlefield, where fractions of a second separate hunter from hunted, reaction time becomes everything. The mantis shrimp's brain, relatively small compared to vertebrate predators, cannot afford to waste cycles on computational color analysis. By wiring wavelength recognition directly into the sensory system, it achieves near instantaneous environmental awareness. Every flash of coral, every shimmer of fish scale, every micro glint of crustacean shell is processed almost as soon as it is seen. When it hunts, the mantis shrimp's visual system becomes a targeting computer. It locks onto prey using polarized reflections, gauging distance with trinocular precision, and calculating trajectory with frightening accuracy. The prey, often a crab or snail, rarely understands what it is facing. To the untrained eye, the shrimp's stance seems calm, almost statuesque. Its folded appendages, known as raptorial clubs, rest beneath its body like hidden daggers. But within those limbs lie biological weapons capable of delivering acceleration faster than a bullet leaving a handgun. The strike is one of evolution's most violent acts performed in miniature. When the mantis shrimp unleashes its club, it reaches speeds exceeding 20 meters per second, generating forces strong enough to shatter aquarium glass. The motion is powered by a latch mechanism built into the limb's exoskeleton, storing elastic energy like a spring until release. Upon impact, the target is not only struck mechanically, it is assaulted by physics itself. The speed of the strike creates a momentary vacuum bubble, a cavitation event. When this bubble collapses, it releases a shockwave and a burst of light known as a cavitation flash, a temperature spike so intense that it can briefly rival the surface of the sun. High-speed footage captures the event in stunning clarity. The club snaps forward, the bubble forms, implodes, and a micro-explosion of heat and sound follows. The crab's shell splinters before the shrimp even retracts its weapon. The cavitation bubble alone can kill prey, even if the physical strike misses. In that instant, the mantis shrimp demonstrates not only mechanical power, but also exquisite timing. Its visual reflexes, honed by millions of years of evolutionary refinement, synchronize movement and perception with almost robotic precision. The entire sequence from neural impulse to impact occurs in less than 0.003 of a second. This extreme behavior has attracted the attention of physicists and engineers as much as biologists. The mantis shrimp's club structure combines mineral hardness with elasticity, arranged in a helicoidal pattern that distributes stress like a natural composite material. This design, if replicated synthetically, could revolutionize armor and impact-resistant technology. Yet even more astonishing is how this biological weapon is guided by such extraordinary sensory input. An example of evolution engineering a perfect balance between perception and power. In the quiet aftermath of a strike, the mantis shrimp often drags its prey into a burrow, disappearing behind a cloud of disturbed sand. There, it uses its formidable appendages again, not to kill, but to excavate and shape its home. Burrows provide both refuge and strategic vantage points. From within, the shrimp peers out, rotating its independently mobile eyes, each scanning a separate part of the world, yet working together through constant micro-adjustments. The field of vision overlaps, generating three-dimensional depth and spatial awareness unmatched in the invertebrate realm. One might wonder what it feels like to inhabit such a visual reality, to live in a world saturated with ultraviolet glows, polarized patterns, and rapid-fire motion. For the mantis shrimp, light is not a background condition, it is the medium of existence. Every movement through its habitat triggers a cascade of reflections and refractions. Even the faintest ripple of a fish's fin or the shimmer of plankton in sunlight becomes a coded signal, a potential clue. The shrimp's brain, compact yet hyper-efficient, translates these sensory floods into instant behavioral choices: strike, hide, pursue, or retreat. Evolution, in the case of the mantis shrimp, has not simply refined an ancient blueprint, it has reinvented it. Where most animals evolve by gradual improvement, the mantis shrimp appears to have leapt laterally into an entirely different mode of sensory design. Its combination of trinocular eyes, polarization vision, and direct color recognition has no parallel in the animal kingdom. It represents an evolutionary experiment in perception, a different solution to the problem of how to interpret light. And still, despite its complexity, the mantis shrimp's visual world remains largely alien to us. No imaging technology can fully simulate its multidimensional perception. Its ultraviolet channels operate in wavelengths we cannot name, its polarization detection renders surfaces unfamiliar, and its depth perception functions on principles our own eyes cannot emulate. In studying the mantis shrimp, scientists confront not just a new species, but a new way of experiencing reality. Back in the lagoon, as sunlight fades and the tide begins to turn, the mantis shrimp retreats into shadow. Its eyes, perched like periscopes, continue to swivel, each maintaining independent vigilance. In the fading light, polarization contrasts remain sharp, revealing outlines invisible to everything else that swims nearby. The reef, in its last glimmers of day, becomes a silent theater of hidden communication, one that only the mantis shrimp can truly read. It is a creature defined by speed, precision, and perception, a small, armored philosopher of light and motion. In the shimmer of its world, where color is not compared but recognized, and where every reflection is a secret signal, the mantis shrimp stands as a reminder of evolution's infinite creativity. Its world is not brighter or richer than ours. It is different, a parallel universe carved into the spectrum of light, where vision itself becomes both weapon and wonder. In the quiet shallows of a coral reef, where sunlight breaks into golden lattices across sand and stone, a starfish moves, slowly, deliberately, yet with purpose that seems almost uncanny. At first glance, it appears motionless, an idle ornament of the seafloor. But time reveals its true rhythm. Microscopic tube feet pulse in unison beneath its arms, hundreds of translucent tendrils gliding it forward in a movement so gradual it feels geological. To watch a starfish crawl is to witness an organism thinking without a brain, navigating without eyes as we know them, and coordinating limbs without hierarchy. It is a creature governed by distributed intelligence, its decisions emerging not from a single command center, but from the collective agreement of its parts. The anatomy of this ancient design is deceptively simple. The starfish, or sea star, lacks a head, a brain, or any centralized nervous system. Instead, its neural network forms a ring encircling the central disc, branching outward into each of its 5 arms like the spokes of a wheel. Every arm carries its own cluster of nerve cells, capable of sensing, moving, and reacting independently. At the tip of each arm, a tiny red eye spot peers into the world. Not an eye in the human sense, but a patch of light-sensitive cells capable of detecting brightness and shape. These primitive eyes cannot form images, but together they create a panoramic awareness of light gradients, shadows, and directions. Through this system, the starfish sees with its body. Beneath this elegant simplicity lies a deep evolutionary logic. In a landscape of tidal surges, shifting sands, and predatory fish, redundancy is survival. If one arm is lost to a crab or eel, the rest continue functioning seamlessly. The nerve ring reroutes control, and over weeks or months, the missing arm regenerates, complete with new tube feet, muscles, and an eye at its tip. This decentralized structure grants resilience no centralized brain could match. Damage one part of a vertebrate's brain and function collapses. Damage a starfish's arm, and the remaining limbs adapt, negotiate, and reconfigure behavior as if nothing happened. When a starfish moves, what seems like directionless wandering is actually consensus. Each arm contributes its own vote toward the direction of travel, interpreting light levels, water currents, and chemical cues diffusing through the water. The central nerve ring acts as a coordinator, not a ruler, mediating these inputs into collective motion. When placed on a flat surface, the arms extend, test, retract, and extend again, a ballet of sensory sampling. Eventually, the body begins to glide, not because any single arm decided to move, but because a majority alignment has been reached. The animal has achieved consensus and the reef becomes its map. To understand how this works, scientists have conducted experiments that challenge the notion of what it means to navigate without a brain. In one such study, researchers at the University of Copenhagen gently removed one of the starfish's eyes, just a single eye spot from the tip of one arm. The result was not paralysis or confusion, but subtle behavioral change. The starfish's path to shelter shifted. Its sense of direction became biased, veering toward the side with more functional eyes. With only 4 remaining, its distributed vision still worked, but less precisely. The animal compensated, demonstrating that navigation is not the product of a single dominant eye, but a composite of all 5 working together. The loss of one simply tilts the collective perception, proof of a system built on cooperation rather than command. On the reef floor, this coordination manifests in mesmerizing ways. When disturbed by a passing fish, a starfish reacts not by fleeing in panic, but by distributing escape decisions across its arms. One arm senses shadow, another detects current, a third perceives the faint chemical trace of a predator's passing. Slowly these inputs align. The arms facing the threat retract while those opposite extend. The motion looks clumsy at human timescales, but at the pace of a tide pool, it is a masterclass in decentralized decision-making. The starfish does not think about running. It becomes the act of running through the sum of its limbs. This same distributed logic governs its feeding behavior. When the starfish finds a bivalve, an oyster or clam, it uses suction from its tube feet to anchor each arm to the shell's edges. Then begins a slow-motion tug-of-war. Each arm pulls independently, adjusting tension based on resistance feedback through its own local nerve net. The central ring merely harmonizes these efforts, preventing wasted energy. After minutes, hours, or sometimes days, the shell cracks open just enough for the starfish to avert its stomach, a fleshy sac that extends outward through its mouth, wrapping the prey in digestive enzymes. Here again, control is local. Each arm stabilizes the position while the stomach, under partial neural autonomy, completes the feeding. Coordination without a conductor. Evolution's brilliance is revealed in how the starfish's nervous system mirrors its body symmetry. The 5-armed structure, called pentaradial symmetry, is not arbitrary. It provides equal sensory coverage in every direction, making the animal omnidirectional in both perception and movement. While most creatures favor a forward-facing orientation, the starfish has none. Any arm can become the front, depending on which direction the collective decides to move. This flexibility grants remarkable adaptability in the unpredictable terrain of the reef. Whether climbing coral heads, crossing sand plains, or anchoring to rocks during turbulent tides, the starfish's body plan offers stability, resilience, and awareness in all directions simultaneously. The simplicity of the starfish belies a hidden complexity in its sensory biology. The tube feet, each less than a millimeter wide, are not merely locomotory organs, but also chemical sensors. They detect trace molecules released by decaying organic matter or prey hidden under sand. The animal follows these gradients not with central processing, but through a process called chemotaxis, where local sensors trigger directional movement. When multiple arms detect increasing concentrations, the network collectively reorients. The starfish, therefore, smells its environment through distributed sensing, translating molecular information into coordinated motion. Experiments have shown that starfish use this chemical mapping to locate shelters as well. When placed in an unfamiliar arena with a shaded refuge, individuals consistently navigate toward the darker area. This ability depends on both light-sensitive eye spots and chemical cues, two independent sensory systems working in tandem. Remove the eyes, and the animal still follows chemical gradients. Block chemical detection, and it relies solely on light contrast. Disable both, and movement becomes random. The redundancy ensures that even partial loss of sensory input does not cripple behavior. Such integration across systems reveals an evolutionary truth about intelligence. It does not always require a brain. In humans, the nervous system centralizes control to achieve speed and complexity. In starfish, decentralization achieves resilience and parallelism. Each arm operates like a semi-autonomous robot, communicating through nerve pathways that share information continuously. The result is not chaos but emergent order, an organism that behaves intelligently through the cooperation of unintelligent parts. The ecological role of the starfish extends beyond its own survival. On coral reefs, it acts as both predator and gardener, shaping community balance through its feeding preferences. By preying on bivalves and other slow-growing organisms, starfish open space for faster species, maintaining biodiversity. Some, like the crown-of-thorns starfish, can devastate coral when populations explode, stripping reefs bare. But in normal conditions, their grazing helps regulate growth, preventing dominance by any single organism. Even in their destructiveness, starfish reflect nature's balance of forces, creation through consumption, order through distributed control. Underwater cameras filming a starfish's motion in real time reveal a dance that is both mathematical and organic. Tube feet stretch, anchor, and release in coordinated waves, hundreds moving in smooth rhythm without a central clock. The arms advance like synchronized oars, yet each adjusts microscopically to local terrain. The system's precision arises not from command but from feedback, the most fundamental principle in biology. Each foot senses resistance, relays tension to its neighboring nerves, and the signal cascades through the network until the entire body adapts. It is a living algorithm, a computation performed in tissue and touch. Even regeneration, one of the starfish's most astonishing abilities, follows this decentralized logic. When an arm is severed, it carries within it fragments of the nerve ring and the blueprint of the whole. In some species, a single arm can regrow an entire body if a portion of the central disc remains. Cellular signaling orchestrates regrowth without centralized oversight, guided by gradients of hormones and positional molecules. What looks miraculous is, in fact, the continuation of distributed control at the cellular level. In the grand architecture of the reef, where intelligence often manifests in speed, cunning, or cooperation, the starfish represents a quieter kind of mastery, the intelligence of systems. It demonstrates that cognition can arise from structure, not just neurons, that perception can be collective, not singular, and that decision-making can emerge from feedback rather than command. It is an ancient solution to modern problems, a living model of decentralized control that mirrors everything from ant colonies to artificial intelligence networks. As the sun lowers and the reef dims, the starfish continues its slow pilgrimage toward shadow. Its arms, illuminated by fading shafts of amber light, move with patience forged by 500 million years of evolution. Each tube foot grips, each nerve pulse whispers, each eye at the arm's tip scans the dimming horizon. There is no leader among them, no single awareness guiding the path. And yet together they move with quiet precision, an entire body agreeing, through sensation alone, on what must come next. It is a lesson written in the oldest code of life, that intelligence does not always speak in thoughts or act in haste. Sometimes it crawls, imperceptible and deliberate, carried on 5 arms beneath the waves, each seeing, each sensing, each deciding, until the many become one. Beneath the slow sway of kelp forests and the shifting mosaics of coral rubble, The sea urchin lives in quiet diligence, armored and ancient. It moves with glacial patience, its globe of spines rolling gently across the seafloor like a small, bristling planet. To human eyes, it appears almost mindless, a creature without a face, without eyes, without expression. Yet beneath that rigid symmetry lies one of the most extraordinary sensory systems in the animal kingdom. A body that sees without eyes, a moving organism whose entire surface functions as a crude but effective visual network. The sea urchin's skin is not merely a shell, it is a lensless camera made of living tissue, bone, and light. Under magnification, the sea urchin reveals its secret. Each inch of its body bristles not only with spines, but with tiny tube feet tipped in transparent bulbs. Embedded among them are photoreceptive cells, clusters of light-sensitive molecules capable of detecting brightness and direction. There are no pupils, no corneas, no optic nerves connecting to a brain. Instead, light detection is distributed evenly across the surface, forming what biologists call a dermal photoreceptor array. The animal is, in effect, one vast retina wrapped around a sphere. Every part of its surface contributes to a collective visual experience, producing what researchers describe as spatial awareness without image formation. It cannot see shapes or colors, but it can sense the gradient of light around it, translating brightness patterns into navigational cues. In laboratory experiments, marine biologists have placed sea urchins in arenas with controlled lighting, small focused beams cast across a neutral substrate. When the light spot appears, the urchin responds. Spines on the illuminated side begin to angle away, while those in shadow tilt inward. The creature rolls slowly but decisively toward darker zones. It behaves as if it recognizes where light originates, though it lacks any directional eye structure. What emerges is not the reflex of a simple organism, but the behavior of a distributed network responding collectively to sensory input. The spines act like signal amplifiers, guiding motion through coordination rather than command. Each reacts locally to light, yet the sum produces purposeful movement. The mechanics of this vision are subtle but astonishing. Sea urchins possess opsins, light-sensitive proteins similar to those found in human eyes, but instead of being concentrated in a retina, they are scattered throughout the epidermis. When light strikes the body, these opsins trigger nerve responses that travel through a ring-shaped nervous system encircling the mouth, distributing information to the animal's hundreds of tiny muscles. The spines and tube feet then adjust their positions in real time, steering the urchin as though it were a self-correcting rover, guided by the faintest hints of illumination. In evolutionary terms, it is an elegant compromise, a way to sense danger and shelter in all directions simultaneously, without the vulnerability of exposed eyes. This decentralized form of sight changes how we define vision itself. The urchin does not see a predator in the conventional sense. Instead, it detects the shadow of approach, the dimming of light that ripples across its body as an object passes overhead. When a fish swims nearby, even if it never touches the urchin, the drop in brightness across its spines sets off a cascade of micro-responses. The spines on the shadowed side stiffen, tube feet contract, and the entire organism begins to retreat, often wedging itself into a crevice or burying partially in sand. These reactions are not controlled by a centralized brain, but by networks of ganglia distributed along its nerve ring. Each part communicates with its neighbors through short-range signaling, producing behavior that seems intelligent precisely because it emerges from simplicity. The hypothesis that the spines themselves sharpen vision adds a layer of brilliance to this design. By blocking or casting shadows over nearby photoreceptors, the spines may act as natural light filters, crude apertures that create contrast patterns across the body. This shading effect, scientists believe, increases the urchin's ability to determine the direction of light, effectively turning its armored shell into a compound detector. The darker areas between spines serve as relative pixels, allowing the urchin to compare brightness levels across its surface. The more densely packed the spines, the higher the spatial resolution. It is a visual strategy that transforms defense into sensory advantage. The same armor that protects also enables perception. In one controlled study, when researchers partially covered a sea urchin's body with opaque material, the animal's orientation shifted dramatically. Deprived of light on one side, it began to move erratically, as though confused by missing input. Restore the light, and the motion regained coherence. This demonstrates that its navigation depends on a body-wide consensus of brightness signals, each cell contributing its vote toward direction. The concept echoes the same distributed intelligence found in starfish, but here the sensory data is not mechanical or chemical, it is visual, sculpted in photons. The urchin does not perceive an image of the world, but rather a map of gradients, a living topography of light and shadow that guides every step. This peculiar form of vision is perfectly adapted to the urchin's ecological role. Living primarily on the seafloor, often in dim light filtered through kelp or algae, it must distinguish between open exposure and safe cover. Too long in the open, and it risks predation from fish, crabs, or sea otters. Too deep in crevices, and it loses access to drifting food particles and algal films that coat rock surfaces. The ability to detect subtle shifts in illumination allows it to balance these trade-offs instinctively. It moves when shadows grow long, hides when brightness surges, and positions itself to maximize both protection and feeding opportunity. Evolution has taught it not what to see, but when to move. The urchin's slow pace belies its ecological impact. Across rocky reefs and kelp forests, these animals act as silent regulators of plant growth. By grazing on algae, they prevent overgrowth that can smother corals and reduce oxygen flow. But when populations surge, often due to the decline of natural predators like sea otters, entire ecosystems can collapse into what biologists call urchin barrens. In these desolate landscapes, stripped of kelp, the seafloor becomes a wasteland of bare rock and drifting spines. Here too, their light sensitivity plays a role. In overpopulated regions, urchins often cluster in shaded crevices during the day, emerging en masse at dusk to feed. Their collective rhythm is synchronized not by communication, but by shared reaction to light. An entire community pulsing with the same distributed photoreceptive cues. The evolutionary implications of this sensory system extend beyond marine biology. Engineers studying distributed robotics often cite sea urchins as a model for decentralized control. Systems where individual sensors work independently but produce unified outcomes. Each photoreceptor, like a node in a network, processes only local data. Yet when thousands of such nodes operate in concert, patterns emerge: avoidance of predators, alignment with light gradients, efficient navigation. It is the same principle that allows flocks of birds to turn in unison or schools of fish to scatter as one. In the urchin, these dynamics occur at a microscopic level, embedded in a creature with no central mind yet impeccable coordination. Watching a sea urchin move is like observing thought in slow motion. A beam of light sweeps across its surface, spines on one side darken while those on the opposite glimmer. Tube feet extend from the shaded side first, anchoring to the substrate. The spines pivot, providing leverage, and the whole body begins to roll gently away from the illumination. The process is nearly imperceptible to the naked eye, unfolding over minutes rather than seconds. Yet it is exquisitely precise, each adjustment tuned to subtle differences in brightness that we would never notice. The animal's behavior may seem primitive, but in its methodical progression, one senses purpose, a quiet form of computation performed entirely by skin. When we think of vision, we imagine focus, lenses, pupils, optics, and clarity. But the sea urchin's world is built on gradients and shadows, on the logic of many small sensors agreeing on the direction of change. It embodies a vision system not of precision, but of consensus, an ancient evolutionary prototype that blurs the boundary between sensing and being. In the dim, flickering light of the reef, where shadows dance and predators patrol, that is all the urchin needs. Its armor gleams faintly as it settles once more against a rock ledge, spines gently waving like antennae in the current. Around it, light drifts through water in shimmering ribbons, and though it cannot see them as we do, it feels them, every photon, every shade, every passing cloud overhead. The entire body listens to light, and through that chorus of cells, the animal perceives the world in the only way it must. It is not a creature of eyes and images, but of brightness and direction, a living, armored, lensless detector, evolved not to behold beauty, but to survive within it. The ocean at dawn is a vast cathedral of sound. Light has barely pierced the surface, but the water is already alive with invisible music. The soft crackle of shrimp colonies, the low hum of distant whales, and the sharp staccato bursts of dolphin sonar echoing through the deep blue corridors. Where human eyes would struggle to see beyond a few meters, dolphins perceive the world in acoustic detail, painting mental landscapes with precision that vision alone could never achieve. Their clicks are not simply noises, they are packets of information, each one ricocheting off objects and returning as a full sensory picture. To a dolphin, sound is not heard, it is seen. In the shallow waters of Florida Bay, a small pod of bottlenose dolphins begins its morning patrol. The group moves as one, a loose, synchronized formation that shifts with effortless grace. Every click and whistle, every subtle flick of a fin is part of a language that shapes their collective awareness. Beneath them, the seabed stretches in soft ripples of silt and eelgrass. Here, visibility can drop to near zero when disturbed, but that is no obstacle. Dolphins hunt by sound, and their echolocation penetrates where light cannot. Each dolphin emits a stream of rapid, high-frequency clicks, bursts of ultrasonic sound that spread through the water like ripples through air. When these clicks strike an object, whether a fish, a rock, or the shifting curtain of a sand plume, they bounce back as echoes. Inside the dolphin's head, a fatty organ called the melon acts as an acoustic lens, focusing outgoing clicks into precise beams. The returning echoes are received through specialized fat channels in the lower jaw, then transmitted to the middle ear and processed by an auditory cortex that occupies much of the dolphin's brain. To understand what this means, imagine an animal capable of perceiving not just the outline of an object, but its internal composition, the density of its tissues, the hollowness of its organs, even the orientation of bones within. Dolphins can detect a fish buried under several centimeters of sand, distinguishing between prey and rock simply by the way sound scatters through their bodies. Researchers have demonstrated that dolphins can even recognize individual humans underwater by the acoustic reflection of their skeletal shape, a form of biological X-ray that blurs the line between hearing and sight. The images dolphins build from sound are not static. They are dynamic, three-dimensional constructs that unfold in time. When a dolphin scans an object from multiple angles, it can mentally rotate the image, reconstructing its form much as a human might imagine a spinning cube. In controlled experiments, dolphins trained to identify objects by sonar alone have shown the ability to recognize the same items visually when presented later, an astonishing cross-modal understanding that implies true mental modeling. This ability to translate sound into spatial geometry marks one of the most complex sensory systems ever evolved. But echolocation is only one facet of the dolphin's cognitive world. Their communication, social alliances, and cooperative behaviors reveal a level of planning and cultural transmission rare among non-human species. Every dolphin develops what scientists call a signature whistle, a unique acoustic pattern that functions much like a name. Mothers whistle these identifiers to their calves repeatedly during the first months of life, reinforcing recognition in a process strikingly similar to language learning in human infants. Later, when dolphins meet in the open sea, they announce themselves with these personalized whistles, exchanging names before joining or avoiding groups. In playback experiments, individuals have been observed responding to the recorded signature whistles of long-lost allies, even after decades of separation. Such memory and individual recognition suggest social bonds anchored in sound as enduring as our own through words. The richness of dolphin communication extends far beyond identification. Their whistle repertoires include contact calls, alarm bursts, and even synchronized patterns that coordinate group hunting. Off the coast of Florida, researchers have filmed one of the most extraordinary examples of collective intelligence in marine life, the mudring hunt. In this behavior, a small number of dolphins encircle a school of fish in shallow water. One individual begins the sequence by diving low and swimming rapidly in a circle, thrashing its tail to stir up sediment. The motion whips the sand into a vertical ring, a spiraling wall of silt that rises several meters toward the surface. The panicked fish, interpreting the opaque boundary as solid, leap upward to escape, and are met by the waiting mouths of the other dolphins positioned just outside the ring. The precision of this tactic is extraordinary. Each dolphin knows its role. One drives, others wait in ambush, and timing is critical. The ring must close perfectly, and the strike must come the instant the fish break the surface. Observations suggest that dolphins take turns leading the hunt, a sign of coordinated strategy rather than simple imitation. It is a demonstration not just of skill, but of planning, an ability to predict the future behavior of prey and partners alike. Echolocation plays a central role in such hunts. Even as the mud obscures vision, dolphins maintain an acoustic picture of the chaos within. The lead dolphin monitors the density of the fish inside the ring, adjusting its trajectory to keep the trap intact. The others listen to the returning echoes, judging the precise moment the fish mass tightens, the instant before panic drives them upward. Then, with split-second coordination, the group strikes. Each click and whistle exchanged in that moment carries meaning measured in milliseconds. The hunt succeeds not through dominance, but through the harmony of shared perception. Recent studies have pushed the boundaries of our understanding even further, suggesting that dolphins may use echolocation not only to sense, but to imagine. By comparing patterns of returning echoes to stored acoustic memories, they can infer what lies ahead, effectively predicting unseen objects based on experience. This implies a form of mental simulation, a way of seeing with expectation rather than reaction. Some neuroscientists propose that the dolphin's large prefrontal cortex, rich in associative neurons, allows it to perform something akin to mental rotation of sonar images, a process familiar to humans who visualize objects in their minds. The complexity of this sensory world shapes every aspect of dolphin life, from navigation to empathy. In dark waters, groups maintain cohesion through constant low-frequency clicks and whistles, each member aware of the other's location, as if mapped by invisible threads of sound. When one is injured or entangled, others respond instantly, often supporting it at the surface to breathe. These rescue behaviors have been documented across populations and may arise from the same acoustic awareness that allows them to perceive one another's states. To a dolphin, the internal echo of a struggling companion may sound profoundly different from that of a calm one, a physical resonance of distress translated directly into perception. What emerges from all this is a portrait of intelligence sculpted by sound. Evolution has given dolphins the ability to transform an auditory signal into a mental space rich with shape, movement, and texture. They inhabit a universe where light is secondary, where perception is built from pressure waves and reflected time. Their communication intertwines with their sensing, a continuum of sound that blurs the boundaries between speaking, hearing, and seeing. As the sun climbs higher, the pod finishes its hunt. The water clears and shafts of light pierce the blue, catching the glint of smooth grey skin as the dolphins rise together to breathe. A chorus of clicks fades into the distance, followed by the soft hiss of exhalation. Beneath them, the sand settles, and the echoes of their world grow quiet once more. Yet for these animals, silence is never empty. Every movement, every pulse, every drop of sound carries the shape of a world they alone can see. A world drawn in acoustic light, where perception itself is a living map, unfolding endlessly beneath the waves. In the open Pacific, the sea stretches like liquid glass to every horizon, a blue so deep it seems to contain memory itself. Beneath this vast stillness, something ancient stirs, a voice that has traveled farther than any sound on Earth. It begins low, almost imperceptible, a vibration that trembles through the water like the first pluck of a cello string. Then, building in layers, it becomes a song, rising, falling, echoing across entire basins of ocean. It is not random noise. It follows structure, rhythm, and pattern, carrying information that no one fully understands. The singer is a humpback whale, and his audience is the sea itself. A male humpback's song is among the most complex acoustic displays in the natural world. Lasting anywhere from 5 minutes to half an hour, it unfolds as a composition of repeated themes, stanzas, and phrases, a musical architecture with both form and evolution. The song's deep moans, haunting whoops, and sharp percussive clicks can travel hundreds of kilometers underwater, refracting and bending through thermal layers until they blend into a planetary chorus. But what makes this phenomenon remarkable is not just its beauty. It is the way it changes, collectively, culturally, and predictably, as if an invisible conductor guides an ocean-wide orchestra. Each population of humpback whales shares a song, and that song evolves over time. In the waters off Hawaii, for example, males might begin a breeding season singing a particular sequence of notes, a pattern researchers call a theme. By the next season, parts of that theme may have been replaced, modified, or rearranged. Sometimes, an entirely new composition emerges, sweeping through the population with astonishing speed. Within months, thousands of whales adopt the same revision, abandoning older melodies in favor of the latest version. It is as though a single idea, born in one individual's mind, ripples through a community that spans continents. Marine biologists studying this phenomenon describe it as cultural transmission, the ocean's version of a hit song going viral. Through hydrophone arrays deployed across migratory routes, scientists have traced these acoustic waves traveling eastward across the South Pacific, moving from Australia to French Polynesia to South America. Each migration season, the new pattern emerges first in one region, then spreads to the next, displacing the previous version entirely. No genetic change drives this process. It is pure learning. The whales are listening, memorizing, and copying, an act of social imitation on an oceanic scale. To understand how they do it, we must enter the world of whale acoustics. Sound is the primary sense in the ocean, traveling more efficiently through water than through air. For a humpback, the sea is not a silent expanse, but a dense medium filled with texture and tone. Their ears are tuned to low frequencies, perfect for carrying sound over vast distances. Each call interacts with the seafloor and surface, bouncing and refracting in complex ways. To our ears, the resulting echoes might seem chaotic, but to a whale's brain, weighing up to 7 kilograms and wired for auditory processing, these vibrations form detailed spatial maps. When a male sings, his song carries multiple meanings at once. It is a display to rivals, a beacon to potential mates, and a form of participation in an evolving social tradition. Yet unlike the mating calls of frogs or birds, the humpback song is not fixed to a single genetic blueprint. It is learned, remembered, and changed. In this sense, it more closely resembles human music or language than animal instinct. Researchers have even compared the song's structure to human syntax, sequences built from smaller elements that combine according to rules. There are phrases, sub-phrases, and transitions that follow hierarchical organization, suggesting cognitive planning and pattern recognition. Underwater recordings reveal that a singer may repeat a particular theme for hours, refining it, adjusting pitch or rhythm as if rehearsing. Other males nearby will sometimes mimic these patterns, introducing slight variations of their own. Through this iterative process, a consensus gradually forms, the dominant version that becomes the population's standard. This collective editing shapes the trajectory of the song's evolution. In a single generation, an entire population may shift from one musical paradigm to another, a process analogous to language change in human societies. During aerial surveys, researchers observing singing males from above note the stillness of performance. A whale hovers vertically in the water column, head angled slightly upward, tail down, motionless except for the slow rhythm of its flukes keeping position. The body acts as both instrument and amplifier. Sound resonates through its massive chest cavity, radiating in every direction. The singer seems entranced, locked in concentration. Yet his song does not remain confined to his immediate surroundings. It joins a symphony of overlapping voices that merge and drift across miles of ocean, blending into an acoustic tapestry that defines an entire ecosystem. This oceanic communication network is more than performance. It is culture. Culture, in the biological sense, means information passed not through DNA but through learning. In humans, culture allows knowledge to accumulate, shaping everything from tools to traditions. In humpback whales, culture manifests through sound. The continuity of song across generations demonstrates memory and imitation. The transformation of that song over time reveals creativity and adaptation. Some researchers propose that these cultural waves function as markers of population identity, reinforcing social cohesion within vast migratory communities that otherwise spend months apart. The mechanism by which whales remember and transmit songs remains a subject of deep scientific curiosity. Brain imaging and anatomical studies suggest that humpbacks possess neural circuits specialized for auditory memory, comparable to those found in birds that learn songs. The hippocampus, a structure involved in memory formation, is highly developed, supporting the ability to recall and reproduce complex acoustic sequences after long migrations. When a whale returns to breeding grounds after traveling thousands of kilometers, it carries the song learned the previous season, ready to modify or replace it according to what it hears. Field observations have begun to capture the spread of these cultural shifts in real time. In one study, hydrophones along a migratory corridor recorded the introduction of a new theme originating in eastern Australia. Over several months, that same motif, a rising, haunting pulse interwoven with trills, appeared in recordings from New Caledonia, then Tonga, and eventually French Polynesia. Each population adopted it fully, abandoning the old composition almost overnight. This propagation pattern mirrors the spread of linguistic innovations or musical styles among human communities, though at a planetary scale and mediated entirely by sound through water. What drives these changes remains partly mysterious. Some scientists hypothesize that novelty itself may have selective value, that females prefer males who sing the latest version, rewarding innovation. Others suggest that song change reduces habituation among listeners, keeping communication fresh and effective. In either case, the persistence of this pattern across decades underscores the role of social learning in marine mammals. It is evidence that even in the largest, most fluid environments on Earth, tradition matters. The importance of memory becomes clear when we follow these singers along their migration routes. A humpback born in the tropics may travel to polar feeding grounds spanning thousands of kilometers each year, guided by inherited instinct and learned experience. The same individual will return to the same breeding area annually, often at the same time, carrying with it the acoustic memory of the current cultural repertoire. As populations meet along migratory crossroads, songs intermingle, a kind of exchange network where regional dialects blend and mutate. These intersections act as cultural bridges, ensuring that no population's music remains isolated for long. Through aerial drones and hydrophone arrays, scientists can now visualize these encounters in unprecedented detail. From above, pods of humpbacks carve white wakes across the steel-blue surface, their movements punctuated by bursts of sound below. Hydrophones record overlapping themes, some nearly identical, others diverging by a few rhythmic beats. Within months, those subtle differences vanish as one version prevails. Watching this process is like witnessing the evolution of language unfold before our eyes, compressed into the span of a single migration. What does it mean that whales have culture? It suggests that intelligence in nature arises not solely from individual cognition, but from collective memory. Humpback songs are not static relics, but living records, updated annually through communal participation. They remind us that learning and creativity are not uniquely human. They are emergent properties of any social species capable of imitation and communication. The ocean in this sense is not a silent wilderness, but a vast archive of shared experience, an acoustic civilization. As evening settles over the Pacific, the sea darkens to indigo and the song continues. A low phrase rolls through the deep, echoing off unseen mountains of water. Another whale answers in kind, his version slightly altered, perhaps a new motif beginning its journey. The sound merges with others, building a chorus that envelops everything. For those who listen through hydrophones, the experience is overwhelming. A wall of sound stretching beyond comprehension, a reminder that beneath the waves, cultures bloom and fade with the rhythm of the tides. Somewhere in that darkness, a whale rehearses the future, turning vibration into memory and memory into art. The song that began as a single voice will travel farther than any migration, crossing oceans and generations, carried by the collective memory of those who swim through the sound. The humpback song is not just communication, it is continuity, the living proof that in the cold and pressure of the deep, ideas can still move, evolve, and endure. Kelp forests sway beneath the cold Pacific swells, their golden fronds catching fragments of sunlight that dance down through the water like molten ribbons. The air above smells of salt and iodine, the crash of waves muffled beneath layers of seaweed and surf. In this cathedral of drifting green, among the blades and holdfasts that anchor an entire ecosystem, a small mammal floats on its back, grooming, rolling, and most remarkably, working. The sea otter, Enhydra lutris, may appear whimsical as it drifts belly up among the kelp, but beneath the surface lies one of nature's most complex displays of intelligence and culture. Its paws move with the practiced precision of a craftsman. In one forearm pocket of loose skin, just below the armpit, it stores its most prized possession, a stone. Sea otters are tool users, but unlike many other animals that manipulate their environment, their tool use is both regional and familial. Each otter inherits not a genetic blueprint for its behavior, but a learned tradition, passed down through observation and imitation. In the kelp forests of central California, one can trace entire family lineages by their foraging style. Some clans specialize in using stones as anvils, placing them on their chests to smash open abalones or urchins. Others wield rocks as hammers, holding them in their paws to chip away at snail shells or dislodge mussels from rocky substrates. Still others rely on prying techniques, twisting prey loose without tools at all. These behaviors persist across generations, forming cultural niches, distinct regional styles of survival shaped not by geography alone, but by social learning. To witness a sea otter at work is to see the precision of adaptation refined over countless generations. Floating supine, it retrieves a clam from the seafloor, holding it against its belly with one paw, while the other grips a smooth, rounded stone. With a rapid series of strikes, the shell cracks open, each blow timed by tactile feedback through the otter's whiskered muzzle. The shell yields. The otter feasts. What makes this scene extraordinary is not the act itself, but the consistency across individuals within a population. In one region, nearly every otter uses the hammering technique, while in another, most use anvils. This consistency implies that tool preference is transmitted socially, mirroring the way human communities pass down craft and custom. Beneath these behavioral traditions lies an anatomy uniquely suited for manipulation. The sea otter's forelimbs are short and muscular, the joints rotating freely for complex movements. Their paws, unlike the webbed flippers of seals or sea lions, retain fine motor control with opposable thumbs that can grasp, twist, and hold. The underarm pouch functions as both pantry and toolkit, capable of storing several stones and bits of shell. It is not a random adaptation, but a specialized pocket of skin evolved to secure tools and food while the otter dives. This pocket often holds a single favored stone, a lucky rock that an individual may carry for weeks, using it across different hunts. Scientists studying foraging behavior in wild otters have found that these individual preferences are remarkably stable. One animal might favor smooth basalt cobbles, while another consistently chooses flat sandstone chips. These preferences can influence not only the otter's success, but also its diet. A hammer user may specialize in thick-shelled clams, while an anvil striker exploits snails and urchins. Over time, these choices create microcultures within the same population, each with distinct prey profiles and foraging territories. The kelp forest, viewed through the lens of otter behavior, becomes a mosaic of overlapping traditions, each family line shaping its own ecological footprint. But the relationship between predator and prey in this environment is dynamic. The otter's intelligence drives innovation, the prey evolves countermeasures. Abalones clamp harder to the rock, their muscular feet responding to pressure changes as they detect an otter's presence through vibration. Urchins grow thicker spines, their outer shells reinforcing against crushing blows. Clams burrow deeper into sediment layers, forcing the otter to dive longer and work harder. This evolutionary arms race has pushed otters to refine not just their tools, but their thinking. In controlled observations, researchers have introduced unfamiliar shell types into otter territories. At first, individuals approach cautiously, testing hardness and texture with quick taps. Then the experimentation begins. Some otters try to crush the new shell type directly. Others drop it from a height or wedge it against a rock ledge. Within days, the population settles on the most effective strategy. The rapidity of this adaptation reveals not instinct but cognition, problem-solving grounded in experience. Juvenile otters learn by imitation, watching adults manipulate objects and copying the motions. In some cases, mothers have been observed deliberately teaching, holding prey just out of reach until a pup mimics the correct action. This teaching behavior is rare in the animal kingdom, typically found only among humans, certain primates, and a few bird species. Such learning extends into tool management. Otters are known to carry a small selection of stones for different purposes, sharp ones for prying, blunt ones for cracking, and to replace them when lost or worn down. Each object is tested for effectiveness. Poor tools are discarded. Over time, individual skill and judgment refine these decisions, leading to subtle but measurable differences in foraging efficiency. Experienced adults can open a clam in seconds, while younger individuals may take minutes, striking the shell dozens of times. The disparity in speed underscores how culture, in this context, is also a form of learned craftsmanship. The ecological implications of this intelligence ripple outward through the kelp forest. Sea otters are keystone predators, their presence maintaining the balance of the ecosystem. By consuming sea urchins, they prevent the overgrazing of kelp, which in turn shelters fish, invertebrates, and crustaceans. Where otter populations decline, urchins proliferate, devouring the kelp until only barren rock remains. But within healthy otter territories, the forest thrives, its canopy reaching toward the surface, buffering wave energy and storing vast quantities of carbon. In this sense, every rock an otter wields has consequences that extend far beyond its immediate meal. The relationship between cultural behavior and ecosystem stability is increasingly evident. Populations with diverse tool use traditions exploit a broader range of prey, reducing pressure on any single species. This variation buffers the community against environmental change. If one prey type declines, another can fill the niche. In contrast, populations that rely on a narrow foraging strategy are more vulnerable to disruption. The persistence of multiple foraging cultures within a single region therefore enhances ecological resilience. Evolution, in this case, operates not only through natural selection, but through social innovation. Studying these behaviors requires patience and precision. Field researchers document thousands of feeding events, recording which tools are used, how long each prey item takes to open, and how often a particular technique succeeds. Motion-sensitive cameras and drones capture the otters at work from above, while underwater microphones pick up the percussive rhythm of shell cracking echoing through the kelp. Over time, these data reveal patterns, clusters of related individuals using similar tools, distinct dialects of behavior defining subpopulations. The parallels with human cultural geography are striking. Different villages of otters practicing their own crafts, shaped by shared experience and environmental context. The cognitive demands of this lifestyle are immense. An otter must remember the location of foraging grounds, the texture of profitable rocks, and the behavior of specific prey. It must plan dives around tidal cycles and currents, using kelp strands as anchors to rest between hunts. Even rest itself becomes an art form. Otters wrap themselves in kelp fronds to prevent drifting, their bodies forming small floating rafts that pulse gently with the swell. Pups are left on the surface while mothers dive, buoyed by the natural insulation of their dense fur, the thickest in the animal kingdom, with up to 1 million hairs per square inch. This fur, maintained through constant grooming, traps air for buoyancy and warmth, compensating for the lack of insulating blubber found in other marine mammals. Each of these adaptations, physical, behavioral, and cultural, converges into a portrait of survival through ingenuity. The sea otter is not merely an opportunist but an artisan of the coast, turning the simple act of feeding into a learned tradition. Its intelligence has ecological weight. Its memory shapes landscapes. When an otter selects a stone, it is choosing more than a tool. It is participating in an unbroken lineage of learned behavior, stretching back generations. As evening settles over the Pacific, the kelp forest darkens, the surface glimmer fading to deep amber. A solitary otter drifts near the edge of a kelp bed, belly up, a clam balanced on its chest. The rhythmic tapping begins again, a quiet percussion beneath the waves. Around it, the ecosystem it helps sustain hums with life. Fish weaving through kelp stalks, crabs scuttling over rock, sea urchins grazing in cautious numbers. Each sound is a note in the intricate harmony of a balanced reef. The otter finishes its meal, tucks its favorite stone back into its pouch, and floats into the shadows. The waves close softly around it, carrying forward not just a single creature, but a culture, a learned craft of survival, passed hand to paw through generations of memory, ingenuity, and the rhythm of the sea.